Wow, we didn't even make it to broadcast without breaking PG-13.
Okay, hey everybody. This is the live broadcast of the first Fangirl Nation online book club. Yay! So, my name is Toni. I'm the senior correspondent for Fangirl Nation, the website for all things geeky and pretty much generally what we fangirl over. I usually fangirl over comic books and for pretty much films and all that good stuff, and also books. And I'm going to go ahead and have the rest of my guests go ahead and introduce themselves, starting with Kelly.
Oh boy, I get to go first.
Because you look fantastic.
Hi, I'm Kelly. Yeah, I kind of fangirl over everything. Doctor Who, Star Wars, Supernatural, Hello Kitty. Yeah, I think those are the big ones. Unicorns. Team Unicorn.
Team Dragon. All right. Onward over to Miss Nix.
Shit, I was not prepared for that. Okay. I'm Nix from Firebird Leather. I'm a book nerd, I guess, so I don't have a specific fandom. I have obsessions that last a few months and then I move on, so that's about it. I don't have a particular focus, I guess.
That's all right. And then now onward to Sarah.
Hello. I work in music and film. My fangirl things are Doctor Who, definitely. Grew up on Harry Potter, and like Nix, I read so many things that a lot of them can't be quantified, other than if you hand me a book with a sexy guy in a kilt, I'll probably read it.
David Tennant in a kilt.
Oh,
that's dangerous. Back off.
I have a picture of David Tennant in a kilt pinned on Pinterest.
Awesome.
Do you want to post that to the group page?
Sounds good.
So as you can probably tell, this is already not going to be your regular book club. Some of us are already drinking. And if you don't know already, we are discussing the wonderful geektastic book, Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. And generally, if you like 80s pop culture references, video games, fun, and a really nerdy author that has his own DeLorean, then you're going to want to check this book out. Does anybody want to try a hand at kind of summarizing the book for us?
If you had asked before we started drinking, maybe.
Basically, it's just a love letter to the 80s.
True.
Everything 80s. For doing a movie or whatever, you are going to have to license everything in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
But
and let's see, we have a new addition, Miss Leah. We're having sound difficulties. Are we back in? Can we hear you, Leah?
Give me 1 second.
You just need to up the volume.
How about now? Anything?
We can hear you, but are you able to turn up?
Hold on a second. Let me see.
Up to 11!
Turn down for what?
How about now?
Yes.
There we go.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had to go back to the last decade myself and get a headset.
Well, could you please introduce us to you, Miss Leah?
Yes. Hi, I'm Leah. I am a game designer who has worked on MMOs for about 10 years and otherwise all-around geek about everything.
Now, we were just going over the kind of summarizing Ready Player One. Do you want to give your hand at it?
Yeah, sure. Ready Player One is about a dystopia where everything sucks and physical transportation is extremely difficult, so everyone lives their lives mostly in the context of a VR type thing, and it's about as somebody else mentioned earlier, in other conversations, a Willy Wonka-style quest to be the person who gets the golden ticket to control the simulated universe and keep it out of the hands of the evil corporation that has bad plans to monetize it in ways that won't work. So, you know.
I already got distracted by the jazz hands.
Yeah,
I already
sorry.
under all that one.
Oh, also, I wanted to introduce my 2 drinks I made.
Yes, let's get that started.
Pokemon Blue
Ooh.
and Pokemon Red.
Oh my gosh.
What is it made out of? Did you actually mix that together?
Yes, Pokemon Red is maraschino cherry juice, Kraken, and Di Serrano. And Pokemon Blue in my Clefairy glass is Curacao, vodka, and lime soda.
I like that one.
It's very good.
I would like to try that one. Did you get the recipe from somewhere, or did you make it up?
No, I made it up. I used to be a bartender, so that's another thing. Yeah.
Ah.
This
So
is
you're
going to
hosting
bode
the
well
next
for the
party.
future.
Yes. This lighting is weird. I'm going to go fix my lighting while you guys do the rest of your
No problem.
things.
Okay.
Since Miss Lee already got us started on the alcohol, you can already tell I'm already drinking. And I was going to pick one drink called Iron Maiden because it was very 80s font, but I couldn't find it. But I found this one, which is Witchcraft. And it bodes well for me because usually when I play Warcraft, I play a Warlock. Not a very good Warlock, but a Warlock nonetheless. Does anyone want to share what they're drinking?
Sure. So I really lucked out on timing here. There's a ton of Monty Python references in the book, and Stone actually just released a beer called Your Father Smelt of Elderberries.
No.
Oh, it's so good.
It was perfect timing, and it's like a medieval style ale made with elderberries. It's actually pretty good. I just started drinking it a few minutes ago. It's also really strong, so I don't promise I'm going to be, eloquent in the next 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I'm just drinking wine, my standard red. I don't know.
Your default
I go
setting?
through. I've been going through so many bottles this week that I just stopped even looking at what the label says. So.
And then Miss Kelly, do you want to share anything?
Oh, no. Just dihydrogen oxide.
That sounds dangerous. And speaking of Miss Kelly did something fantastic for us and made us cookies, which I accidentally cracked, unfortunately. But
I have one that came out.
I used icing to glue it together.
Yeah.
So thank you, Miss Kelly, for making the keys. Sorry to Miss Leah that I didn't get a chance to mail you out the cookies, but I hope the rest of you ladies enjoy it.
Next time.
Basically, I'm going to be high off of sugar and drinking alcohol while we're doing this, for I'm an adult. Adult things. All right, now, we're still trying to wait for one more person, but hopefully they'll jump in while we're talking. We kind of already summarized about the book. We share our drinking and ourselves. If you haven't read the book, we will be spoiling it from this point on, just to be fair, just to be nice. So if you're just curious about the book, and if you think you should read it, could each of you guys give, your impressions of the book, and would you recommend it? Starting off with Kelly.
Yeah, I loved it. It's, just... It's not deep literature. It's easy, easily read. It's fun. A lot of fun, so I really liked it, and I recommend it, especially, if you like anything from the 80s, video games whatsoever, dystopian, yeah.
Okay. Miss Leah?
Yeah, it's really good, although I have to say that reading/listening to it a second time made the amount that it is a wish fulfillment novel written by somebody about 8 years older than me became so transparent upon second listen, but it's still really good. And there are a lot of things it does about identity online and representation that I can't think of another novel that does it exactly in that way while maintaining the same sense of fun. So that's what I think really really recommends it.
Awesome. Miss Nix?
I really, really liked the book, and I was kind of surprised that I did because I am not a huge fan of online RPGs. Like, I can't stand World of Warcraft or like EverQuest or anything like that. I'm sorry. I mean, if that's your thing, that's totally cool, but it's so not my thing. So,
Awesome in real life.
sorry. What? Bullshit. Anyway, but I thought that I really love the character development, and I think that my favorite part of it was when Parzival actually met H for the first time.
Yes.
Just because that, like, the reaction to me was so, like, if I could picture myself in that situation on either side, like, I could totally kind of get where they were at with that, like, just, you know, kind of like, well, we're friends, but, like, is this really going to change anything? Like, am I still the person that I was to you before? And all of that kind of stuff. Like, I thought that was just really, really well done. And I kind of thought that, like, Halliday in himself was a really interesting character because he was so incredibly flawed. As just like a person and, as Leah has pointed out, as a game designer.
Oh, this is going to start a really interesting topic already. We already discussed it offline, but now Miss Sarah.
So, I've only read the book once, and it was about a year ago. I loved it at the time. Now, knowing a little bit more about the author and having played with virtual reality a lot more in the past year, going back and rereading, I might have different thoughts. But my first impressions were I would recommend it to anybody, and I did. I don't even know if I have my copy anymore, because every time I would talk to someone, they're like, oh, I want to read it. I'm like, here, just take it. Just go. Don't talk to me until you finished it. I know I really enjoyed the first half more than the second. I think once, like, certain events started happening, it didn't hold the same magic for me. But even throughout the entire story arc, like, I don't give books 5s on Goodreads very often, and that was one of my 5s. So it's not a perfect book, and I definitely am willing to accept that not everyone loves it, but I highly enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, definitely I agree. Like, it's not the perfect book, and quite frankly, if you're looking for the perfect book, you're never gonna goddamn freaking find it. I almost broke my rule right there.
I'm gonna pull a cap on you. Language.
The thing about Ready Player One is that it's the first book that I've read in a long time that was just fun. It was just freaking fun, and I didn't want to read too much into it. I didn't want to analyze it. Although I read it when it first kind of was still new. I forget what year it was. I saw Mr. Ernest Cline, the author, at a convention, and I was at a panel for a completely different person, not even for him, and I was just pretty much charmed by his nerdy behavior. I mean, the minute he said DeLorean, Ghostbusters, and he combined it all to the Ecto-11, I believe, I was like, ooh, you're interesting. And then he said, oh, and the audiobook is by Will Wheaton. Win! And so the minute I read it, I was totally happy about it. You don't get to see that kind of fun in a book form. So if you're looking for fun, then I would definitely recommend Ready Player One. If you don't understand a lot of the 80s references, I wouldn't really worry about it. You could still get through it. I only recognized a few of them, to be honest. Some of it went way over my head. Although at this point, there are plenty of websites that will list all the freaking references.
Yeah.
Links to the movies, links to the music. So don't even worry about it.
I mean,
all right.
I'll admit, when I was like trying to figure out if my beer worked, I was like, how many Monty Python references are in? And I was like, oh, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I feel kind of bad losing Geek Cred a little bit that I haven't really watched that much Monty Python, so I didn't get the references. I was more into the retro games than anything else because I played a lot of Pac-Man. And I played, I forget what it's called. I think it's Centipede. I love Centipede and Galaga. Oh, Kelly came back. Hello, Kelly. Welcome back.
Yes, it's funny. I know we're not at the recommending phase yet, but one of the things that I can't recommend because it's no longer available anywhere was that there was an amazing Galaga webcomic for a few years that was about two female friends who were arcade gamers who, like, had to, like, become digital and join up with the space president to save the world. It was like the good female version of the movie Pixels, and it was so great, and they took it down, and I'm so sad. But
I'm not, as far as I'm concerned, Pixels does not exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will recommend
like the premise of that, but good was what the webcomic was, and yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so once again, that is now the end of the spoiler-free portion of this video. If you want to read the book, just go read it right now. What the hell are you still watching this video anyways? So, at this point, it is now spoilers. And I know two of our wonderful guests are chomping at the bits to discuss it because, well, she kind of mentioned it already. She's a game designer. So, let's go ahead and jump into Miss Leah, and let's start this whole wonderful topic that we were discussing offline.
First, I want to give people watching, like, in case they need a refresher, a brief idea of what the Oasis is. In that it is the giant MMO that morphed into a universal data management iCloud type of thing, and
just go read it right now. What the hell are you still watching the video
exactly.
anyway?
And the problem is that there are some really fundamental design decisions that were made that are bizarre.
Somebody's gonna stop their video in the background.
Yeah. Does somebody has feedback? Let's see. No problem.
Is that you, Carrie?
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. Hold on, Leah.
No problem.
If you may introduce Miss
Where'd I go?
Not Digimon.
Go ahead and introduce yourself, because I'm going to keep calling you a Digimon. Go ahead. Go for it. Introduce yourself.
Oh, good Lord. Hi, I'm Carrie. I've been having technical difficulties.
You look fantastic, by the way.
What?
You look fantastic.
Thank you. I felt like a crazy person doing this eye makeup.
I'll tell you a story later about the reaction at home.
And product I was happy with, though. It is a little weird. But anyway, my name's Carrie. I have a regular muggle job, but in my fangirl life, I grew up with Lord of the Rings, Star Trek, and Star Wars. And along the way added Harry Potter, and I'm a big Doctor Who fan. And right now my biggest thing is Welcome to Night Vale.
Cool. And just to not confuse the viewers a little bit, I will switch back between Carrie and Kari, for I have been obsessed with Digimon, and that's what I keep doing.
For over a year and a half, and she still mispronounces my name, so I actually respond to both of them now.
I'm a bad person. All right, back to Miss Leah. Back to your discussion.
All right, and an aside, I read an interview with Ernest Cline where he said he played a little bit of MMOs during the Mud era and during EverQuest and during Anarchy Online, but that he hasn't played since. And that really showed in the game design here. Because it omitted things like, hearth and bind point systems that allows you to get back to your preset location, which has been a function of games. Actually, was a function of games even in EverQuest, but has become a much larger function of games. And there's that whole MacGuffin in the very beginning or plot whatever in the very beginning where he can't go to other planets because he might not be able to make it back to school. And if you are going to have a design where somebody has to be physically present at a game location for their actual school, you have to design a way for them to automatically get back there no matter where they're stuck. I mean, in modern MMOs, people constantly are teleporting somewhere and getting them stranded there so they can't get back. That kind of trolling happens 24/7. And as I mentioned, joked to a friend of mine originally and have repeated since, like, a hacker could lure Granny into a PvP area, one-shot kill her, and then all of her banking records are gone. At the end, when a bunch of the characters are killed, Artemis makes the reference to not having access to her documents anymore because her character dies. Like, wait, your character dies in PvP and you lose all your term papers? That's not good game design.
I actually didn't even notice about that function because it's been so long since I read it, but it's funny how that didn't even hit me as being a huge flaw. But now, like later, I'm like, that sucks. Like that you pointed that out. Although now we have like the cloud weirdness going on.
But it was kind of like it was implied in the thing, and at first I was like, maybe I'm misremembering this. But on my second read through, I was like, no, Artemis explicitly says that her Grail diary is inaccessible because her character died. That for sure, your documents saved to the cloud, you have to back them up locally, or if your avatar is killed, they get erased. And that is insane, you know? And it's really funny because I've worked with game designers who were like, let's do permadeath and stuff like that, like who really strongly were advocating for a single idea that is not very casual friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of interesting how these, you know, hardcore gaming ideas took off in a world that then became adopted by everyone, which creates all of these weird unintended consequences where somebody's play in an MMO could be catastrophic to their real life. And I don't know, I find that hilarious. It's not something that anyone who is not a game designer would ever think about during reading the book, but it's something that I've been obsessed with, of course.
I guess for the layman and all of us, it just creates so much more dramatic tension. Where that was.
Yeah.
Does anyone else want to chime in? Because I don't have a game design background. I can barely draw stick figures. So I don't know if anybody want to chime in on thoughts about that, about being in that world and how freaking not secure anything was.
I don't have a game design background by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that it was both ways as far as data that could be saved, because I do remember Artemis saying, you know, like she couldn't access her Grail diary except that she had a physical copy, and that was the only reason why she was able to like do certain stuff there at the end. But Parzival mentioned in certain spots that he had managed to like buy space that was tied to his account but not his character. So maybe it went both ways. Like if you stored it under your character and your character died, then you fucked. But if you stored it under like a different kind of thing, then you could keep it. I'm not sure. But I kind of wonder if what I could never understand is, like, was the Oasis intended to be a game before the whole hunt for the Easter egg, or was it intended to be another world? Because it kind of seemed like it was meant to be a second, like, I guess a second life, like to reference that poorly done piece of shit. But like, sorry,
I don't remember.
I've already broken the rule probably 20 times. I'm sorry.
It was very much Second Life meets World of Warcraft meets Amazon Prime meets virtual reality tourism software all together. Like from a overly analytical, hard sci-fi perspective that I come from, it makes sense that it would have caught on if what really happened was James Halliday solved all of the VR hardware problems, because there's a bunch of VR hardware problems that the Oasis seems to have solved for price, for people getting sick after being logged in for a long period of time, for eye strain. Like, so my idea is that he solved all of those hardware problems, and his solution was so good that everybody just was forced to work with him forever, and it became super popular because he was the only person who solved the hardware and software usability problems of virtual reality itself, not because he was a particularly good game designer.
Sarah, did you want to pop in with something?
Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like to me too, and you know, having been in the virtual reality world lately, like the race is not necessarily to create for virtual reality. There's a lot of creation going on. There's a lot of great stuff coming out and people trying different things. But still to this day, even when you have amazingly gorgeous game design and people with great controls, the games that you can play without getting sick are still really simplistic.
True.
There's one, I forget the name of it, that a friend's a friend of a friend let me borrow their Steam account and their Oculus and let me play it off.
Oculus Rift?
Yeah, off their
Oh.
Steam account, and it was like
No.
joysticks and controls. Yeah, and I played it for like half an hour, and it was great.
You played for half an hour?
Yeah, no issues, and like that game's fine. But
I had the complete opposite reaction.
yeah, no, I had no issue with
10
that.
minutes.
Well, and like, so I thought I was okay. I was like, oh, I guess I'm one of the people it doesn't affect. But then I went to VRLA a few weeks ago, and there was one where you have to like look down to shoot the spiders and like move. Like the movement was a little weird. I guess it's more like a Half-Life or a Call of Duty, and rather than a spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
And within 10 minutes of playing that, I felt a little off, and even for about an hour afterwards, I felt queasy.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of work to be done, but yeah, if you can whoever solves the problem first is gonna be the front runner for for the big games. I mean, smaller stuff's gonna take off fast.
Yeah, and just to write off of that one, I went to Indicate last year, and I got to test out the Oculus Rift. I only waited for like 30 minutes in order to do it, and I just remember within like a second, I was just too nauseous. And I mean, inside it's beautiful. Like you gotta wear this heavy thingamajigger around your head, and I'm like, whoa, my neck's gonna crack. And then you're like looking, you're like, oh look, I can see space. I can see. Oh god, I'm gonna vomit. And I was so out of it that I was just shooting random rocks, just to not focus on what's going on. So, being able to participate in Oculus Rift after reading Ready Player One, I will probably die in Oasis.
Well, luckily, and I mean they're not super high tech, but I brought one of the cheapo Google Cardboards that they hand out to everybody who ever walks by their booth.
It looks like a joke. What is that?
I know. It sounds ridiculous, so sorry if it's loud.
It's a pinhole camera.
Well, and this is why, sorry, I go on about virtual reality a lot. It's exciting to me. So this is your headset. It weighs about 5-6 ounces, and the way it works is you put your phone in with the right app, you close it, and there you go.
What?
That's it. So I agree. The Oculus headset and the Samsung headset, Samsung's a little better, are both really heavy, but they're going to get lighter and more portable.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to chime in terms of virtual reality and gaming and all that good stuff?
I know, I just get dizzy trying to play, the 3D on 3DS, so I can imagine that I would probably throw up and, with that gear on.
Yeah, the Oculus Rift was really difficult for me too with the nausea, but it was not as disorienting as like the holographic technology they're trying to push for like live events and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That was extremely creepy as fuck. Like,
yes.
Sorry, it was extremely weird. Like, I don't know. It was
like a captain picture.
I know. I'm sorry.
There's actually some interesting. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. If you were
No.
Okay. There's actually some interesting science that everybody has two forms of 3D processing, like that you use in the real world to look at an object and be like, how far away is that from me? And women tend to rely on one variety of visual cues slightly more, and rely on the other one. They still use both, but rely on the other one a little less, and vice versa. And the visual cues that women rely on have been less slavishly reproduced by computer graphics. They often have a lot of things to do with color and lighting, and color and lighting are harder problems than some of the other problems of computer graphics, and also there hasn't been focus on them because they're not as important in male perception of 3D. I might not be giving all of the facts exactly right. I read this paper like 6 months ago, but just Google 3D perception gender, and you'll find like the studies on that are really interesting. So that's one of the things that maybe that's the algorithm that James Halliday managed to solve that got everybody in,
Yeah. Now, Oh, go for it, Nix. Go for it.
I think for me, like the issue with the 3D technology wasn't like not the Oculus Rift, but the actual like stuff that was like designed to be used in an event. It wasn't necessarily the way it was visually represented. It was more. I'm not going to be able to remember it now, but what is like the threshold of like acceptance when it comes to AI or robotic technology, where to a certain extent. Yes, exactly. Yes,
What
that
was
was it. Like it was so the thing that they were projecting was supposed to be like there were two. One looked like a human, or was supposed to be like a person that you could interact with. But it was just there were just subtle little things that told you that this thing is not real, that this is not a person, and that was incredibly weird. Like it was very just disorienting to be around it. But then they had another thing that looked almost like Stitch. Or what's the little thing from Lilo and Stitch, the little alien? It kind of looked like that, and it was much easier to be around that creature than it was the human representative. So I think it's not even just like, I think when it comes to gaming, if we're really talking about a truly like documented 3D space, the NPCs are also really going to have to step up their game, or it's going to be really weird.
And then for those who don't play games, NPC stands for non-playable characters. Those are the ones that are usually in the background. And it's just kind of stepping away from the video game aspect of it. Well, no, not really. I'm lying. But the thing about Ready Player One is that everything in this world is connected to Oasis, whether it's school, business, or this wonderful ongoing search. In a way, it's kind of like we're already doing that now, just not without the whole like Avatar situation. But it does kind of remind, well, a lot of people several things. Like the most recent, I guess, recent anime, Sword Art Online is the best example of all this one about using avatars and playing this MMO game. And then another book would be like Neil Stephenson? No Crash. That book is intense. If that is like a lot of stuff to think about in general. The alcohol is already starting to kick in. There is something else I was going to talk about. Does anybody have anything to chime in while I get my thoughts in order?
I was actually just listening to a podcast by the BBC that was very timely about internet addiction. And the research that they were looking at was saying that the addiction didn't really start until you started playing those MMORPG fantasy role-play games where you got to be another person in a fantasy life. And that made me wonder if something like this is actually possible. Like
Wait, in terms of addiction or in terms of like Oasis and all that good stuff?
In terms of, it looks like it was a dystopian story that society decided to live in this online fantasy world rather than deal with the problems of reality.
I know a lot of people who play Warcraft already suffer from a lot of issues, like especially the ones who just play like for a really, really long time. At most I can play is probably about 3 hours before I need like a dog, a cat, a human, I don't know, anything, to be honest. But it's definitely addicting when you get into that world. Especially when you get to play an orc or a panda, which is really cute. Because when you run and the butt wiggles, it's so cute. But see, I focus on really weird things like that.
I could see it for somebody who's scared.
What was that?
I could see it for somebody who's scared to interact. Like, you're very sociable. Yeah. And I can see it like if somebody has really severe social anxiety, the draw of being in this safe space where you can screw up and nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I can see that as an addiction point.
Sarah, did you want to say something?
As a, I don't want to say recovered Warcraft player because I still really like the game.
Recovery. We're going back in there.
You're on hiatus.
I used to be one of those people who played a lot, like 12 plus hours, rated 3 nights a week. Like most of my friends, and actually one of my boyfriends I met because he was my guild leader in Warcraft. So there's Nix, get that look off your face. So I can definitely see when you're talking about like becoming addicted to that world, especially someone in the case of like Parzival, where the world around them is horrendous.
Yeah.
Like their family life is terrible. They don't have access to basically anything pleasant. And like you have at least a connection to humanity, someone that validates you. That's like, you aren't a waste of space and just a bother.
Yeah.
And you find a purpose. It's really easy to get lost in that, which is also something that's very scary.
You can also get addicted to a lot of things that are sort of mediums through which you can socialize with people. Like, a lot of people who get addicted to cigarettes get addicted to cigarettes because they started taking smoke breaks to make friends. And, like, I have a friend in the game industry who became an alcoholic because the only social situations he was ever invited to were drinking situations.
Oh, that's sad.
And so he was going out to drink with his company every single night of the week, and those were the only hangouts he was getting, and so the addiction to, like, wanting to actually hang out with people turned into drinking every single night for 2 years. And so any medium that lets you hang out with other people while exerting social pressure to consume things in order to continue hanging out with those people can be addictive. It's not just MMOs. And I say this as somebody, well, one, I'm a dealer because I design MMOs, but I've also gotten high on my own supply. I played World of Warcraft seriously. I was in one of the first 50 guilds in the U.S. to take down the twins back in Burning Crusade. Yeah, that's right.
What? What?
And so, so I understand that addiction, but at the same time, if I hadn't been playing MMOs during that time, I would have been playing other games. And MMOs are open all night. I've always had insomnia my entire life, and playing an MMO meant that when I was up at midnight, I can't go out and hang out with normal people during that period of time, but I can, I can raid with the Aussies or whatever. So it provides
And
that
the servers
all
are
those
empty.
weird things. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I don't think that the addiction, for lack of a better term, is really a bad thing. Like, at least you're socializing. Like, for some people, it's really scary to socialize in person.
You need to be a panda.
That aspect of being able to be with people, I think that's important. So it's not necessary.
Oh,
Yeah.
incredibly. I think it kind of depends on the person, though, too, because I've seen a few people who have, like, destroyed relationships that they have in real life in favor of those that they've built in the game.
Sure.
And granted, those are, like, that's definitely not the norm. Like, that's, a rare case or whatever.
I also know a human who dropped out of college because he became addicted to Final Fantasy VIII. So
exactly.
it's like...
Wait,
Yeah,
I'm
extreme.
I definitely ditched classes to stay home and play games in college. So.
Wait, I was a nerd who wanted to stay in school. I didn't even ditch it for video games.
Although I'm going to do this, I'm going to preface this, though, or counteract. I work in an office where we work with entertainment, and it is common on game release day for people to be sick when Call of Duty drops. So, yes, it's an issue with MMOs and at Final Fantasy. It's also an issue with basically anything.
I wish I could do that.
I wish I could get away with it, too.
Dragon Quest, in Japan has to drop on a weekend because people wouldn't show up to work or school, so...
And,
of course, Dragon Quest hasn't been a problem for a while now, but,
I don't know if you guys watched the IT Crowd, but I'm thinking of the lady who, like, was smoking, and she kept walking further and further away until it looked like war-torn Soviet Russia just to take a cigarette in terms of interaction. If you haven't watched the IT Crowd, you need to watch the IT Crowd.
Like now, or in 10 minutes.
Yeah. And another thing to 10 minutes. Another thing to watch would be the Guild that Felicia Day created, which actually kind of summarizes everything that we just talked about in terms of social interaction and MMOs, because the whole reason that show got started was her her psychiatrist or whatever therapist told her to meet the people in order to be normal kind of deal. And then I kind of have a flip side to that one. Like, when I was able to play World of Warcraft, I actually created my own guild, the Boba Brigade. Surprise, surprise, because I'm a huge Boba freak. And it actually was, like, within my circle of friends, and it just became, like, a great joke between us. And that actually got me started on cosplaying, believe it or not. That was when I actually decided to create tankards, which is, like, the little thing that goes over you with our emblem. Tabards, not tankards, tabards. And it has our emblem, and it has what we were on the back. And so mine was Warlock, and I had a Paladin. No one knew what the hell we were walking around as. But the fact that my friends were willing to wear that, even though it was a mess, it's the most horrible thing I've ever created. I've improved much, much since then. But it was hot glue gun mess all around. Let's just not. So there's a lot of negative thinking when it comes to MMOs, and some of it's justified, some of it's not. In terms of Ready Player One, I don't blame people like Parzival and everyone else to be stuck in Oasis, because I mean they were living on trailers that were stacked on top of trailers that were stacked on top of trailers.
Well, and there's the slums of dystopian slums, the slums of the slums. So.
Who stacked those trailers? That just seems like a lot of work for nothing.
The one thing that I thought was weird with Parzival, though, was, like, he kind of went through that little episode where, like, he didn't really, like, he kind of, like, he got really involved with Artemis, and then she kind of, like, told him to hit the curb, or not hit the curb, but, we can't do this, we're rivals, or whatever. And then, like, he kind of started getting more invested in who he was in real life. Like, he did that fitness program, lost all the weight, and then the thing that I thought that was kind of unrealistic about his character a little bit was the fact that he, like, infiltrated that place in the real world. Because, I mean, like, I hate to paint gamers with, like, a broad brush, because that's not what I'm trying to do, but, like, taking a risk, like, being willing to take risks in a game does not equal the same type of person who's willing to take risks in real life. So I was kind of like, were you really that kind of a person before, or, like, are you just pushed to the point where, like, you really have nothing to lose because they're going to kill you if you don't win?
It wasn't even that, like, he had nothing to lose because they were going to kill him. He was like a world without the Oasis as it exists then. A world with the, stifled playground IOI Oasis that IOI had said that we were going to create. He thought that, like, life wouldn't be worth living. Like, again, I just finished my reread of it, so it's fresh in my mind. He actually talks about being like, well, when the Sixers get the thing, I guess I'm gonna go up. Like, he walks through his suicide and posts his suicide walkthrough.
I remember that
in his internal monologue. And so it's sort of like, well, if what I'm going to do if they win is kill myself, then anything I do to prevent them from winning is basically self-preservation. And when you're thinking in those terms, I think it's easier to go fucking insanely far. Oh, no.
Wait.
I'm not to go
that far, though? Because he could have ended up, like, being
plus multiple drinks. Not the best idea, but...
Well, maybe, he also figured he kind of should have been dead already. If that original attack...
Language! Approving look from you, Captain America.
I'll take any from Chris Evans.
Yeah. I like that. We'll keep on doing that.
Yes, we will.
Let's see. Okay, so to try to wrap the conversation up a little bit, I kind of mentioned this before. The book is set in the 80s, which is really fun, but I didn't grow up with 80s games. If I was set in this world, I really friggin' hope to gosh that it's Spyro or Super Mario Brothers, because I could totally win on either of those two. What would be your game preference, ladies?
Mine is Tetris or any other puzzle game from the early Game Boy era, because back then I only had 1 or 2 games at a time, and I got really, really good at all of those games, and a lot of platformers from that era, but really the puzzle games from that era, yeah, I will own face.
Anyone else want to chime in? Like, if they could have picked any game to win with, what would it have been?
I've got a
Go.
okay. I've got a second Tetris. Like that's. I had a console as a kid. I don't remember what games I had for it, but my dad and I had Tetris battles growing up. So at one point, I got really freaking good at it. I don't know if I could still be as fast as I used to, but it'd be my best shot.
Man, I grew up with, my first console was Atari, and it was secondhand Atari. And it was with the tank game, and it was my brother. And then it was Atari, it was Sega, it was NES, PlayStation, and I've been PlayStation ever since. I refuse to play on the Xbox, and I don't like the Wii. If I wanted to go outside and exercise, I'll go to the gym. I don't need the Wii. So I have game cred. Anyone want to chime in?
Well, I think, I'm another big Tetris person. It was like me and my mom would always be playing that. Dr. Mario.
Dr. Mario!
I just remembered that. Gosh, I was really good, locally. I don't know about, playing other people across the nation, but I was pretty good at home on Mario Kart 64. And trying to think, like, Disgaea.
Oh, yeah.
I would, I could probably beat that one, but...
Anyone else?
I would be dead. Yeah. I'm so terrible at video games. Maybe, what was the one that you were talking about earlier with the centipede that, like, eats the things?
I think that was Centipede.
Okay, I might be able to do that one, and Tetris maybe, not because I played Tetris a lot as a kid, but because it's like hacking a semi is very similar to playing Tetris. And in like stage tech parlance, like we kind of always say, okay, whoever's the best Tetris player gets to be the fucking lead inside the truck. So maybe Tetris because of that. But don't show me Captain America. I'm sorry. Don't
just
do
need
it.
to, like edit this at the end and have Captain America over your mouth.
I want to learn how to do that.
What I need to do is macro it so that anytime you guys do it, I can hit a button and he just goes,
yes.
Yeah.
Although you may not win in a game, like, I don't know if you ever played Final Fantasy X2, Nix, but you really look like Pain right now.
Mm-hmm.
You can totally walk a sword. Sephiroth.
I've been trying to get through 13 for a year and a half. I'm like, I just got into like past the introduction. Year and a half.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get past Final Fantasy VIII for the past 5 million years, I feel like.
I just don't have time to play.
Yeah.
Me neither.
No, there's
October,
a lot of big time investment.
Okie dokie. And then, just for a little bit of fun, I asked people like if they came up with their own pop culture references in terms of the book. Mix Nix came up with some songs. I didn't really come up with any songs. I don't really know that much about the 80s, except for like, because I didn't know Rush. I actually mistook a song that wasn't Rush. I think the only 80s thing I really like is Cyndi Lauper and Billy Idol. But what were the songs that you came up with again, Nix?
None of them were 80s songs.
But it's more like character descriptions, right?
Yeah, and I don't remember. Hold on, I would have to pull it back up. But none of them were 80s songs. They were just like character. It was the song that made the most sense to me for the character.
What I'd like to ask everybody is, since we all loved it, but we haven't talked about it yet, is the reveal that H was a girl all along. And like, the reveal that H was a girl all along is what took the book from like B- up to A+ for me. I mean,
Favorite part.
because otherwise it had seemed so much like all of the great 80s movies that they were referencing, which were mostly like a group of 4 guys and 1 girl. Or, there was the one token girl who was very stereotypical 80s girl or stereotypical geek girl. And having H also be female was the best way to subvert that and then give the book an actual gender equality to it that I really, really liked. So the question to that is, like, while we're thinking of these things, how you think that a future in which you can define your identity online might be cool, and also whether any of you guys have ever pretended to be something you're not online.
Well, I'm just...
Amanda.
Well, it's nice that it revealed her as she was pretending to be somebody else, but it was positive. It wasn't like she was the 40-year-old, basement dweller that's pretending to be this, the 14-year-old girl. So.
Yeah. Oh my God. I coughed. I coughed so much. I'm fine.
Don't die. Don't die on air.
No.
You can do it as soon as we go off, but...
The thing about her becoming a girl, I was like, definitely, hell yeah. And I was like, I already knew that in a weird way, just because I just felt like that was the way the book was going a little bit. But then maybe just I'm too smart for my own good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of references. I mean, there's a lot of things I think about when I think about this book. That movie with Ferris Bueller? Was it The Last Star? War Games. Totally thought about War Games.
Isn't that referenced pretty heavily in the book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one's referenced. I kept thinking of that one. And then Sword Art Online. And then Kelly actually mentioned it earlier. She'll mention it later. Willy Wonka was definitely a good one of them. I mean, it's essentially almost every story because it's pretty much the chosen one. Decide on the story. Although he didn't really. I mean, he solved it from a very, 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 very long time of 80. I mean, I would have drove myself crazy just doing 80 stuff. I mean, what if they did 90 stuff?
I just think he was so OCD about it.
Mm-hmm. He was OCD about it. But imagine trying to decipher a puzzle, having to listen to NSYNC over and over and over again.
You say that like that's a bad thing.
I think we should start this. That should be the sequel.
Oh my God. I think I would kill myself.
Ready Player 2 is 90s.
Yeah, it would be like Whatever Player. That would be the title. And that
yeah.
Yeah.
So the Fangirl Nation fan fiction club is about to start.
Yeah. All right, let's start something new. All right, final question of the whole thing, majigger. If you liked Ready Player One, sorry, I should start this a bit better. If you read Ready Player One, what would be the book you recommend for others? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone want to start roasting stars?
Wow.
Sure, I'll start. So my first one, for a couple reasons, is John Scalzi's Red Shirts. One, I love him and love his Twitter account. If you're a Twitter person and you like laughing at ridiculous things, you should definitely read it. But the book is, it's self-aware, kind of. Ready Player One isn't quite self-aware enough to break the fourth wall. But it's close. It's borderline. Red Shirts, I don't remember if it does break the fourth wall, but
it does.
It does.
Towards
okay,
the
good.
end, when they meet themselves, especially that really cool scene where he's locked in the bedroom. No spoilers!
No, this is only Ready Player One spoilers.
Yeah, I can spoil everything else. No, I'm just kidding.
So yeah, there's if you like the same kind of nerdy feel, because Red Shirts is basically Star Trek. It's definitely worth a read, and it's one of the only books where I have both laughed and cried at a book.
You don't have to be a Star Trek fan.
No, and I've watched maybe 3 Star Trek movies and 0 episodes, so that's saying something. And then my second one, with a caveat, is Ender's Game. The caveat is I do not endorse modern Orson Scott Card. However, I adore this book. where it's very game-based and, like, the ethics of the game, and it's not quite the same, but if you like watching someone, like, play this political thing, it's pretty cool.
Who wants to do the next recommendation? Nick? Since you're right next to Sarah.
I would say This Alien Shore by C.S. Friedman. It's not based on a game, although there is a pretty prevalent hacker character in it. But it reminded me of Ready Player One because so it's kind of like one of those science fiction things where like humanity has kind of like populated other worlds, but they've advanced to the point where like a human can look like whatever you want to look like. It doesn't really matter what you were born as, and a lot of humans choose to kind of go the cyborg route. So everybody is plugged into their version of the internet all the time, basically through like BioWare that's kind of implanted at birth, and it kind of goes through like just a lot of the challenges that like humanity has faced regarding those types of things, and like how they've evolved past a dystopia to create an actual physical world in which anybody can be or look like whatever they want to look like. So that was where I kind of drew the similarities, but it doesn't really have anything to do with an RPG or an MMO. Excellent book, though.
Cool. Miss Leah?
Okay. I will recommend the other Neil Stephenson book that everyone always tells you to read, The Diamond Age. Because while the metaverse of Snow Crash is an obvious analog, The Diamond Age relates to the sort of other portion of the story of a seriously disadvantaged kid getting to be at a point where they could be successful at a thing because they got a virtual world that was really successful in nurturing them and teaching them and giving them life skills. The very beginning premise of that is that in a really distant, far future, a incredibly rich person commissions a teaching book for their child, and someone pirates it and makes it an extra copy that ends up in the hands of an incredibly poor child.
Okay.
And that child uses this basically interactive speaking book to like gain life skills that allow them to do cool heroic things. And there are other subplots with characters who don't matter as much as the awesome little girl who becomes a superhero from the things she learns from her thinking video game book.
Ooh.
But yeah, The Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson. And then the other thing I would say is Google Daikon 4. It's not actually a anime or a book or anything. It is a like short that was made by a bunch of weirdos who would become Gainax as the introduction for a Japanese science fiction convention. And I used to joke, before Steven Spielberg got brought on for Ready Player One, I used to joke that Daikon 4 is the closest to Ready Player One that could ever be made in a visual medium, because since it's the intro to a science fiction convention, and it's a fan film, and fan rules are different in Japan, obviously. You can do a lot more stuff with licensed IPs in Japan. There's this bunny girl who, like, fights Voltron, and then, like, she's with this flying sword the entire time, which is supposed to be the sword from the Elric series by Michael Moorcock. And at one point she sword fights Darth Vader, and it's like all of these cultural references happen in a little short that is set to Electric Light Orchestra's song Twilight. So Google Daikon 4.
Okay, Daikon 4
on YouTube. Yes.
Next one. I think I lost her a little bit. Kelly? Nope. Carrie. No.
I'm here.
Kelly froze. So Carrie.
Okay, so my first one is Don't Turn Around by Michelle Gagnon, which I believe I'm mispronouncing her last name, because it's in the vein of computery teenager. Main protagonist is a teenager, though it's a girl. And she's basically a hacker, and this world that we read it for one of the other great world where. And the other one that I picked is London Falling by Paul Cornell. It actually takes place in London, and it's a bit more
It's so
sci-fi.
dark.
It is. It's a little scary, but it's
No, it's a lot scary. It's not a little scary. It's a lot scary. Don't
Tony, to you, everything is scary, though.
I know.
No, but this is really scary.
But it's also
I even
fun.
told.
That's
Oh
what I
my
like
god!
about it, that there's a lot of.
told Mr. Cornell that. I didn't tell you guys this, but I actually got to interview Mr. Paul Cornell. And before I started the interview, I was like, I love London Falling, but I'm scared of you, and I'm scared of the book, and I'm scarred. He's like, that's
You went up to the author and told him that you're scared of him because of his book?
That sounds like Tony.
I met him in Valley also.
And then Kelly, your recommendations?
I kept thinking, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Most
I
definitely.
mean, so much of it. It's like he wants to get, hand off his business to, somebody that's young and uncorrupted. And then you've got, all the parents, all of Charlie's competitors are pretty much, IOI and Sixers, and the whole part of the business basically shutting down and nobody knowing what's going on, it just reminded me so much of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Cool. And then to wrap mine up, 2 recommendations. One is the most closest one to Ready Player One is Soda Pop Soldier. Soda Pop Soldier by Nick Cole, who's a wonderful author and a really nice guy. And I also interviewed him on Fangirl Nation. Check it out. And the second one is maybe a little bit odd, but actually a never-ending story. The book and the movie. And that's just more the whole, taking yourself into the world, whether it's a book, like Never-Ending Story, or like a game. It's that whole sense of, it's escapism, pretty much. And the book is way dark, too. The movie
You
only
realize
covers
that you're
the first
bringing
few
up the
chapters.
trauma of an entire generation by mentioning the Never-Ending
That's
Story.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
Heart attacks.
Yes, everybody's thinking of Artax right now. That stupid
My
horse.
kids haven't seen that because I don't want to relive it.
Wait till they're older. Wait till they're older. All right. And once again, that is our wonderful book club. I didn't say once again. I meant now is the
Once again, for the first time.
Once more with feeling.
Thank you to you wonderful ladies for joining in the first online book club. I hope you guys had fun.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Of course.
Great, Tipsy. Thank you for dressing up. We will be doing this again in about a month. I will go ahead and release the date soon. The book that we will be discussing for next month will be Prophecy by Ellen O. So I'll go ahead and put more information on that on the website. Other than that, any final words, ladies, before we disconnect?
Wait, I thought it was Name of the Wind.
We're going to do that for December.
Oh, okay.
December.
Oh, yeah, there's another month before December.
Yep.
Just one thing.
Anyone else? Any final words? Nope. Just a good old hearty, awesome, we did this. There were some technical difficulties, but I think we did a pretty good job nonetheless. I hope the rest of you guys had fun. Definitely, hopefully you enjoyed Ready Player One. If you agree with us, disagree with us, feel free to comment or whatever you like. Vent, throw a book against the wall, whichever. The point is, we want to share our passion for books because we are very passionate people, as you can tell. All right, have a great night, you guys, and thanks for watching.
Bye.